Welcome to The Growing Band Director, the podcast that dives into topics applying to all of us band directors. My name is Kyle Smith, and joining me is my friend and colleague, Jeff Smith. Together, we discuss many aspects of a school band program, including how to build your concert, jazz, and marching programs, as well as everything else we do as band directors. More importantly, we'll discuss concepts that help us all improve our own programs every day. Always remember the famous quote by Ray Kroc, "When you're green, you're growing, and when you're ripe, you rot." Let's get started. Welcome everybody. So this is about the best band boosters ever and trying to create a best band booster organization for your whatever band you're teaching at whatever school. And we're going to try to hit a lot of things today, but this is not necessarily an area of expertise that I have more than anybody else, but I do have along with me Jeff Smith. Jeff, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm just fine.
Okay, that's good. And then our guests for today are Matthew and Karen Stacki, who are wonderful band boosters from the past in our program in Westbrook, and they have a lot of amazing ideas of things that they've done. And I asked them to be on so they could sort of give us a lot of where they were coming from and what they did to try to help with our band booster. So Matt and Karen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to see you guys. I just wanted to start with, we're going to start with sort of a generalized about the boosters kind of thing. And we're going to have some moments, I think, with about what do you do when you want to start a band booster program and you don't have one, or what do you do if you want to change the culture of a band booster program, or what do you do to make it healthy and all that. And I have to say, one of the things I appreciate about the music boosters in the town that I work in is that the vibe has always been that they feel like they're there for the kids and to help with whatever the band director feels like needs to be done. And in a lot of places, there's like fights that happen and there's like egos and all that sort of stuff. And I've always really appreciated it in our town that it's not that way. It's like we're all working for the same mission of the kids and all that. So could you guys, Matt and Karen, maybe start us on that road?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, one of the important things, once you're established is, having good relationships with people and, working closely with the band director and, the people in the music program, to find out, what needs are and stuff. It helps with, planning things and making people feel welcome. But it's important to, help support, because we let you do what you do best,
You always always had this saying that always said the mission is to improve the music program in your district. Remember to help the music program, not to make decisions.
That's right. I mean, my goal personally was always just, look at what we have and just always look to make it better. How can we make it better? And I think that always, for me, that starts with communication with the band director and find out, what's going on with you? What can I do to make your job easier? How can I help this program, like within the scope of what I'm allowed to do? And then, the parents seem to always just be on board. I mean, everybody wants their kids to be in a successful music program. And I think the more support that we offered, the better. But it also, I think what was truly meaningful for us was to make this a memorable experience for the kids that were in band. If you talk to kids that have since graduated, I mean, they'll even say it if they're currently in band, but kids that have graduated and gone through the program, when they look back at their high school years, almost all of them say that some aspect of band was the best thing about high school for them. Their fondest memories came through band. And, I always wanted to do what I could to help, to facilitate those amazing experiences. And, again, take, marching band, but, add special touches to make it even more meaningful for them because, it did have such a strong impact on them, and it does.
And that's the thing.
What were some of the things you remember that kids think back of, like things that they remember the boosters did for them or that made them feel special? Anything come to mind?
Oh, there's a lot of them. A lot of the kind of behind the scenes things, like, the Halloween party. We had an annual Halloween party. It was always, and we didn't even start it. People before us had started the tradition of having a party for marching band kids around Halloween. And it was just, when kids get older, it's hard to find something fun and safe to do that's age appropriate for kids that age for Halloween, because I think they still do enjoy the holiday. So they started having a Halloween party at somebody's house. And, they bring treats and whatever, and there's music, and it's always around the time of marching band finals. So you have a reasonable ending time, but it's like a safe environment where everybody can get together and have fun. And we took it over when Matt became the president of the Boosters. And I think we did it 5 years.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, and just so much. Everyone was so much fun. The kids had an amazing time, and things like that. We've done we did a haunted hayride once, right?
Yeah, there's lots of little things too. I think just kids appreciate, even if it's ice cream sandwiches on a hot band camp day.
Yeah.
Just things like that. It doesn't have to be extravagant. But let's be honest. Music is very important. There's a lot of kids that through my kids' years there, that I think there are some kids that only made it through high school because of the band program. Otherwise they may not have finished. But and what we were trying to clarify on the whole thing about not making decisions is, it's important when you set up your bylaws and everything to begin when you're starting out a booster group. But people are human, and sometimes parents may question things, but the important thing to remember is you're there to support the program, not to. There's always going to be the occasional, well, why aren't we doing this, or why isn't he doing this, that kind of thing. And you have to remind people sometimes, at least when I was president anyways, there are a few times where I'd say, look, we're here to help, remember to support the program at all levels, and let the people that know what they're hired to do their thing.
Yeah, I think Matt's exactly right, that's the best approach. What we used to do is that we used one common denominator to bring parents together, and that was one word: food. We'd have band parent meetings once a month, and we'd have a layout of food in the back of the room that everybody would snack on during the meeting. And then part of the meeting, they'd have their general meeting, and then the other part of the meeting, I'd sit and explain to them what's going on. And a lot of times I'd play a judge's tape from a show and explain why the judge said that about the show. So they would be just as informed as the kids were about how a judge works, how things are done. And then my band parents would, we usually traveled every other Christmas to a bowl game somewhere in the United States. And while we were on the trip, we would always be out there New Year's Eve. So the kids would be at a New Year's Eve party. We'd be in the same area chaperoning, but we'd all hang together and we'd talk and have a good time. And on the years that we didn't have trips, the band parents put together these huge parties where everybody would get together. And so a couple times we had dances. And then at the end of the year, a little different from what you guys do, but we did a awards banquet at the end of the year for the entire school year and give awards for jazz, concert band, marching band, guard, winter guard. And they'd host it at a club, and we'd have that there, and kids would get all dressed up. Parents would get all dressed up and just have a good time and work together and talk together all the time and exchange ideas. And I think what Matt pointed out, where parents would explain their, say, well, why are we doing this? And I'd always come in the latter portion of a band parent meeting, and some of my parents would say, okay, well, this is the questions come and say, well, let's talk about it. And we talk about why I did what and when I did it, so that parents would understand. And then they would go to the parents who weren't there and communicate to them what's going on. And my last thing was, let's see if we can get more people at the next meeting. If every one of you brings one friend from the band parents, let's come together. And then I'd say, now, why aren't we all going to the competition, sitting there clapping for the kids, or coming to all the concerts? And, my program was a little bit bigger, because we had about 200 kids in the program. So we'd have 150 to 300 parents at a meeting sometimes and talking about things, especially when we were going on trips.
But, having that relationship with the boosters, especially like the whoever's leading the boosters and the band director, that, they can ask you questions and they can wonder why things are happening. And there's sometimes when, again, there's the old saying I like that says, doesn't matter who's right, it's about doing what's right. And, sometimes you hear from the parents and you're like, you know what? They're right. We should consider X, Y, or Z. And I always tried to keep that as a motto that, if I hear a good idea, I don't care where it comes from, that's something that I would like to do. So, that's always really healthy to be able to listen to the parents, because obviously, we try to give the parents the benefit of the doubt. But it's really nice when the parents know they can give a suggestion and but in the end, most things are going to be the decision of the band director. And that was always appreciated, to feel like, our training as a band director has been respected, because there's sometimes when you feel like the parent knows more than you do about music, and it's like, well, so those are not always awesome things. In a
That's
minute,
not.
I'd like.
But that's not always the case in every association. And young band directors who come into a previously existing association need to get themselves involved in it to get people understand. And especially when it's like a 20 or 24 or 25-year-old band director that's taking over high school for the first time, and parents are 45 and older,
Yep.
you need to do some showing that what is really the best for the kids.
Right. And Jeff, I know you went through that. I did go through that as well. I had my ups and downs when I first started at my first school with the booster program, and, sort of trying to get that established. And that can be really hard. So people who are new teachers, don't give up. It doesn't happen right away. But it can happen. Next, I'd like to get into, we're talking about recruitment, right? Recruiting of people and how do we get people into the boosters. But real quick, I want to talk about my friends at Maine Saxes. They're a one-on-one saxophone specialty shop providing expert repairs just north of Portland. I know you guys have heard about them already, but Maine Saxes, there they work with you by appointment to really get you a great horn, or fix your horn, or get you really sounding the best you can sound with new horn or mouthpiece reeds and accessories. The mouthpieces are from Aaron Drake and Morgan Mouthpieces, and you can visit mainsaxes.com. That's MAINE saxes.com for more information, or to browse the current inventory. So if anybody has saxophone needs in the Northeast, check out Maine Saxes. All right, so recruitment. Karen, Matt, tell us how do we recruit parents into the boosters?
Well, for me, I think the easiest way to get started with that is always to create some sort of a social event where you're going to have a bunch of new parents. And then, if you haven't, like with us, when we have an established booster group, we basically send those people out in the group, like after maybe a marching band performance for family and friends, and go out and try to introduce ourselves to some of these parents, get to know some of these parents. It helps to learn a little, to learn the kids ahead of time. So you could say, hey, oh, that must be, who's your son? And they tell you, oh yeah, he plays trumpet. Wow. He's doing amazing. He's really come out of his shell in band camp, or, just trying to put yourself out there to get to know these parents at that sort of event. And another thing I think that has been helpful is sometimes if we're looking for, parents that we think would want to be involved in the boosters, because sometimes I think people, they want to help, they want to get involved, but they don't know how, especially if you're a new parent of maybe a younger student, and, it's all so new to you, marching band is new to you, or maybe jazz is new to you. Reaching out to the band director at either the high school level or the middle school level and find out, what parents do you see that you think, might want to get involved a little bit more, from your parent teacher conferences? Who do you think maybe wants to, get involved and just need somebody to reach out to them? So sometimes
somebody that's
helpful.
really invested.
Yeah.
And I know that we've done that in the past, and that's the thing too, showing your, the interest in, because we talk about it being basketball, football programs where you're not looking to rebuild things, you're trying to reload things to always have a good, influx of, parents, and to, learn about the people, just so you can talk to them. I mean, it goes a long way when you can talk to somebody by name and, ask about, hey, how is, Johnny doing, and how's he coming along with the, whatever, the saxophone or whatever. Knowing that, these people, and they're more apt to talk to you and, help out and all that.
You guys always had a really good knack of having in the back of your head what we really needed to have get done. And when you'd meet somebody, you'd pair them up with what we needed. And then it was, hey, would you mind, and it's something that they enjoy doing, something they're good at. And then they don't have to worry about everything. They just worry about their little piece that they're good at, whether it's,
that's all part of of knowing
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all the part of like knowing, the parents and who the kids are and like what they play, but also knowing if they have other siblings that are younger, maybe coming along, and also knowing what people do for a living. I mean,
if they have a special skill set.
Right. I mean, because, we had people that were, jack of all trades, or we have, carpenters that like, hey, you wouldn't mind building some props, would you?
Right.
It's like, and you just, you get a good group of people, you just kind of good communication, and you tell, what you need, and you'll get people to be like, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
So, and you go from there.
Yeah. And we always, we're finding more and more, Jeff and I have been talking that, a lot of times parents don't want to be on an official booster meeting. They don't want to be on the boosters. They don't want to whatever. But the minute you have a football game and you say, we really need people, all of a sudden there's 50 parents there ready to move stuff. And sometimes there's those people who are like, I don't want to get involved, but when my kid has to be performing, I want to be there and I want to help any way I can. And I think it's really important that we accept people who are like that, because, if we sort of feel like, no, you have to come to a meeting to help, it's like, well, we're shooting ourselves in the foot, right? So
Exactly.
There are people who don't want to be involved, but they want to help. Tell me what to do on Saturday when I show up, and I'll be there to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's varying levels of commitment people are comfortable with,
Well, and people have different barriers in their life. Some people, work 2 jobs and just frankly don't have the time. Some people, maybe have, financial limitations and can't help out that way, but, they want to help out another way. So you just, while you're getting to know them, I think a lot of times you can kind of get a feel for where they're at.
Well, and also like you do at Westbrook, where you have the meet and greet and concert at the end of marching camp, band camp. We used to do the same thing, and we just added 2 components differently to that. Is that since we had 6 buses, we had the chaperones stand out on the field and say, okay, these kids are going to be on this chaperone's bus. Could you go over and talk to them, see what you can help out? Because we like to have food on the bus. What could you volunteer? They get to know the parents on a weekly basis because they're out on the road every week. And the same thing with you. This person's a carpenter, this person's a plumber, this person's a truck driver, getting them all involved. That's a great way to get them, and letting the parents talk a little bit at that one preview performance, because everybody wants to see what the show's about and what's going to happen. And that's a great time to make quick connections with parents.
And people think that things just run and they just happen. But when we always say we need more people, we're looking for more people, we're looking for help, it's not just going to happen, then people know that we need to start doing that.
Well, and that's the thing, you never turn down help. I knew that was just because they were, especially when you go on the road for a marching band show is harder, especially if it's, further away, because not as many people are willing or able to make the trip. But especially when you're local, and there are times when you had, way more people show up for pit crew than maybe you needed, but it's like, okay, you can carry a symbol, we're going to find something for you to do. We're not going to say, no, we're good this time.
And I think the other thing you got to do is that high school kids say, no, mom and dad, I don't want you around. I'm going to be embarrassed. Whereas in elementary school, they want their mom and dad around, and middle school, sort of. What you've got to do is say to the parents, listen, I don't care what your child says about whether they want you around or not. They're going to say that you embarrass them. They don't want you around. But the reality is, if you're not there, they're going to be upset you're not there. You need to push away and say, yes, I want to be there, and find your way, your niche for what you can do to help them out and help the program out. And in the end, you find, like Kyle said, you'll have more people than you need all the time.
And that's funny you bring that up, because I've actually had a couple parents say to me that they want to help, but like my son would kill me if I did the boosters. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think they would. I said, I think, they'd appreciate your help, whatever. And then in time, they joined, they became, full on involved, and their child was fine with it. And I think a lot of times it's a way for a lot of these people, you're going through high school and you get those, kids that start putting up walls in high school. And it's sort of a way to get in there, because you establish a relationship with your child on a different level. You're just there helping. You're not parenting, but you're sort of there helping the program, helping them be successful at something they enjoy. And they get to see you in a different light too, like interacting with other adults, doing the booster thing. And I think it's always, I've never seen it negative. I've never seen, a child be like, why are you still here or whatever to their parents.
Well, like I used to average about 8 kids a year that didn't have any parents. They're in the foster program, they're under court jurisdiction or something like that. And I used to go to parents and say, listen, could you go at the end of a competition and go over and give a hug to so-and-so, to this person, because they have nobody that's going to be waiting for them after the competition's over back at the bus. And they just need a hug to know that somebody cares. And what grew out of that was a huge number of people that wanted to know who they could hug. So we have groups of kids that would be standing there looking like they're all by themselves. And then all of a sudden they'd be converged upon with a ton of parents so that they could see what normal is, what life, and to help them move further into their adult lives.
There was another thing I just thought of that's completely almost not related, but a great thing that our boosters did when you guys were there, because we always had all this food. We'd finish the performance, and then kids turn around, and there's like just all the food, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody had the idea, I don't know who it was, to create a cookbook, right? So we had a cookbook made of all of these recipes. Now, the only problem is there's not a lot of healthy food in there. However, the food tastes amazing. And then we sold it for $5 a piece or whatever. There's still a bunch left and all that, but like just that, we still have that. We bought one, and it was a good little fundraiser. That along with the magnet thing, was like everybody wants a little magnet on their car, and we talked about logo in the last episode, Jeff, right? And so anybody who hasn't listened to that last episode, go back and listen to branding your band. But for this one, like that little magnet, I remember you guys did that, and I remember the cookbook. And it's like little stuff, and I don't know, you probably made $100 on it or whatever, but if that. But it was just another like culture community thing. And one thing I found we never do, you go on a lot of booster places and it says always accepting donations, and there's a place where you can pay right on the website or whatever. I don't know if that's anything that we've ever done or not, but just sort of taking help from whenever you can get it. Matt, I think you said it very, very well.
And establishing your organization as a 501c3, so you can do matching grants, stuff like that. We used to do a cannon bottle drive every month, and for 15 years we ran a bingo until the state law got changed that couldn't do a bingo anymore. But different ways, and get parents to participate.
Yeah, that's a good point when especially you're establishing the booster group, because like the Westbrook boosters are, 501c3, and because there's so many places that would be willing to donate, but if you're not, they're like, sorry, we can't, and we even had, some people that worked at a place where they got so much each year they could have the business donate to a charity, and you set that up and you don't have to do anything but collect the checks every year. I mean, it's, you can't really pass that up,
And now you got the Amazon matching sponsorship program where people can put in a donation matching every time so many pennies to your group and make a few bucks there too.
What's that called again?
That's through Amazon.
Is it Smile?
I guess it's Smile. I can't remember the name of it right now. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, I've heard people who do that. I don't have a lot of experience with that, but so, next, I think I'd like to start talking about like just keeping people in the boosters, whether it be through festivals or props or social events or whatever. But real quick, if you guys haven't checked out the episode from last week with Joe Betancourt on instrument repair, I wanted to plug his company real quick. Again, if you're in the Northeast area or whatever and you need anybody to fix a horn, Joe is amazing. And his website, basically he takes in all these instruments that need to be fixed and he fixes them up and sells them for a very cheap price. For example, you can buy flute and clarinet and things for $200 or whatever, and they play perfectly, and they have limited warranties, which basically Joe says it's a warranty for 6 months unless you just drop the horn. So I suggest people check out banjomusic.com. That's BANDJOE music.com, or on Facebook or anything. And he's just such a great guy and does an amazing job with that company. So love him very much, and hopefully people can use that company. It was funny, just on the instrument repair thing, Jeff, we did instrument repair last week, and literally the next day after it came out, I had like 4 horns drop, one seriously, and then 3 others, like it was kind of okay, but it was like nothing's broken in like a month. And then all of a sudden the next day, like everything starts breaking. So I thought, that's what I get for doing this. So we've recruited people into the boosters. They've helped a little bit. They've helped on a show. Maybe hopefully we're going to talk about, hosting jazz festivals and things here at some point. But like, what are things that we can do, Karen and Matt, to like keep people involved in the boosters?
Can we start?
Sure.
Well, one of the biggest thing for me is to try to always keep boosters fun. And, we try to take busy tasks or, more complicated tasks, like maybe planning a big marching band show or planning a jazz festival or jazz dates or something. And we turn it into like a social thing where it will not happen in a booster group. It happened frequently at my house, and we, serve wine and snacks, and we would be sitting around the table, 10 of us, and it becomes, we work hard and we're planning, but there's a social piece to it too. Yep. And, again, people are super busy, but if they feel like they're having fun, it feels like a night out. It felt like a night out, with the girls or with the adults. But we were hardcore planning and working, but it was fun.
I heard that was basically the girls doing the work with the wine, and Matt's only job was to keep the wine coming.
Or to approve things.
Yeah.
He had to come in with a thumbs up once in a while.
Yeah, either open the bottle or come in when I got called. Yes.
But I think one of the other things that, we did a lot, when you have your parent, so if I would go out to a show, I always did a video slideshow at like the end of marching band. So I was always with my camera taking pictures. So I would, go around and take pictures or take video snippets or whatever. And if I got some good pictures of some good kids, not my own, I would email them. Hey, got this picture of your son. I get this great shot of your son, or, so he did an amazing solo. I snapped a photo while he was playing. And I think sometimes it's just those little gestures.
It's the personal stuff.
It is. It's the personal stuff that gets wow. She was there. She took this amazing picture of my kid. I want to, and it makes people want to be more involved. I think it makes it easier for them to want to be more involved. They get more interested in, what we do, the process, and, they see that we're having fun, and that kind of helps them to want to, stay involved or be involved. If you look at our numbers, I always had a list of like all of the boosters we have. So when I sent out email requests for volunteers, I would have this lengthy list, and I don't know, 175, 200 people on it. I would say 3/4 of the people on that list were parents who no longer had a child in band. Whether, some of them, the child had graduated 6, 7, 8 years ago, yet they're still involved with boosters. They're like, call me if you have an event, we still want to come help. And I think it's because we tried to make things fun.
Well, especially when we hosted the marching band shows at Westbrook, we would have, you need a lot of people.
You need like 100 volunteers.
And the thing is, you'd have people that would, have different people go to different things, but there are things that some people do that, they just like to do. Like, certain people would like to cook, or certain people would like to be at certain places. And it was always the joke every year. It's like, okay, they don't need to tell them. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this, right? And it's, it just makes things easier when things are more personal. I mean, that's why I think you had great success, because you had a great relationship with everybody, because like she said, she'd send out a ton of emails, and it was kind of labor intensive, but people would be like, it's a lot harder to ignore an email from, Karen, versus,
a sign up genius.
Generic blanket stuff,
And you'd also be really proactive. Like it almost felt like you did a little bit every day, so that it never got like DEFCON 3, right? There was always thinking ahead and always planning, so that even if there was, 3 weeks worth of snowstorms, we could still make something happen.
Oh yeah. We started planning for events a good 2 months in advance.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, unless, if we knew, as soon as we knew about it, the timeline would start. When do we need to, do this and this and this and work towards it. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in talking about like our planning meetings that we have here, we got to the point where, and there was about 10 of us, where we would have this like monthly outing, and we'd all go to Stockhouse and have dinner, and not talk boosters. But we're all booster parents, and we would just go out and have a social thing because it was fun. And, maybe we didn't have a big event coming up to have a planning meeting, but we all wanted to get together and have fun. So it became a social thing. And that made it easy. I mean, we had an amazing group. We did.
My group was very much the same, but there are two other things that we used to do. One was that if we saw that a parent wasn't coming to meetings or participating, we didn't have email then. So we had to use the telephone. And so we'd assign parents to call these parents and invite them, engage them. And if they didn't have transportation, then give them a ride. The other thing I would say to a new band director is that check out your people. In my case, we had multi-language based families. So we would put out most of our stuff in English and in Spanish and sometimes in Creole to make sure we contacted our entire population. And we went out of the way to make sure that our Spanish speaking population, there was a chaperone or a parent that would make sure to bring them in and talk to them in Spanish and make them feel comfortable with being part of the group and make them realize that you can participate. It doesn't make any difference. We're all the same family.
And you guys also did a really good job with the meetings, always making sure the meetings were productive and timely. I mean, there's always jokes about meetings, but people don't want to go to meetings, right? So if they're productive, obviously that stays on everybody's good side, and you're not looking around like, what are we doing here? Like, there's a plan, and you get through it, thinking about the time that everybody's spending.
Well, I think it's easy to get stuck on a tangent at a meeting. You start talking about one thing and then somebody brings up something and all of a sudden you're talking about something completely different. Yeah. So I think it's important to have an agenda, with a time stamp and say, okay, we're going to talk about this for 15 minutes and then we're going to move on to the next thing, so that you always feel like everything gets addressed. Even, the poor person whose issue was the very last thing on the list, everything's going to get a fair shake, and you're not going to be there for 3 hours because, again, people are busy and they don't have time for that.
And you guys, you would say, like, when it comes to maintaining involvement, basically, like, the bottom line is that people are busy. We understand everybody's busy, right? And make it fun and worth their time to make sure they keep coming back.
Well, they're going to want to come back if it's fun. They're going to want to. And that's, you want them to want to be there. You want them invested in the process, invested in what you do. You want buy-in. They think that it's worthwhile, that their child has an amazing experience with music, but, make it like a fun night out, a productive one, but a fun night out. So it's not like, oh my God, I got to go to a booster meeting. It's, hey, we got a booster meeting and there's going to be cookies and I'm going to laugh.
I used to always say to the parents, this is the last 4 years of an opportunity for you to be part of your child's life. When they graduate from high school, your senior year, they're going off to college or work, and you won't be part of that. Take advantage of those last 4 years as much as you possibly can, so that you can feel like you graduated with them and you helped them through the doorway to life.
I'd like to say that that's really true. Having children that are now in college, that's very true.
Yeah. So, I know a lot of the boosters' work centers around events. So if we're talking about hosting things, a couple of good ideas you guys always had was obviously good line of communication with the band director, and you want to find out what you can know about the festival, because a lot of times as parents, you don't know what's happening. The band director knows that stuff. So, what's the schedule of events for the season? So when do these things come up? What are the needs? So we plan for those financially. Where is it happening? What is happening and all this. Host as many events as possible. So I'd like to include, as we do this, a couple tricks, like things we did in marching band shows, things we did in jazz band shows that we thought really worked well that maybe not everybody knows about. Can we start with that? So sure. Marching band show, I'm going to talk about two things. One, the walking taco is spectacular. You put the fixings inside a Frito bag and you walk around with it, and that was like amazing.
No guess.
Having the line figured out. So when people are waiting for food, there's like it's time, it's space saving, right? It's not just like this huge long line.
Yeah.
And then like when they get their food, get them out of there and let them pay 20 feet away. Just that line moving. So you guys always served a lot of people really quickly, and there was way less lines. So that's what I think of. What are other things when it comes to hosting like an outdoor event that you think of that are really important tricks that we find work?
Well, I think it's important to, whether it be, when you talk outdoors, mostly I'm talking about a marching band show, but we always had, planning meetings, with the band director also, or like the AD. Like, it's important to have ahead of time. We do like the walkthroughs so we could identify, the warm up areas and where we're gonna do, parking, because some places have more room than others. And then you get that one school that comes with the 18-wheeler. You got to know where you're gonna fit the buses and everything else.
Yeah.
And you'll plan for all the, the public safety stuff on where you're gonna park, and having, notifying police and fire. We always did that ahead of time and stuff.
Asking the police, we're gonna have 300 people parking on the street. Can you not ticket them?
Please don't ticket them.
Kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. And reaching out to them ahead of time was like, yeah, you're not really supposed to, but as long as nobody does anything stupid, like just thanks for letting us know. And sometimes just including people makes them happy,
Mm-hmm.
For us, the football field backed up to a synagogue, and ours was communicating with the rabbi to make sure we weren't interfering when we did our show with something he was doing at synagogue. And then the other thing we did is we advertised in the newspaper what our menu was going to be. And we had a group of guys that were professional chefs that would come in and cook. And each year we'd have a specialty that we were going to cook. Then we'd run out of it within about an hour or so.
My biggest advice with events, and this saved me an awful lot of time, is at the end of the event, like within 2 to 3 days after the event is over, get a handful of people that had very different roles at that event and just do a brain dump as far as what worked, what didn't work, and take copious notes about everything. Write down the weather, what food sold, what didn't sell, how much did we have, how much was left over, how hot or cold was it, because that will determine whether hot chocolate sells or ice cream sandwiches sold. And just have like a full, write everything down. And then when it's all done, formulate it into a nice organized document. And then when you have to host your next event, literally everything is done. Everything is done. How much, we bought too many hamburgers last time. Let's buy less. The macaroni and cheese sold out at 5 o'clock when we still had 3 hours left. Let's buy more macaroni and cheese. And
well, it's a lot easier to make each year. You want to make it better, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you know what works well, and then what doesn't, then don't waste your time on what didn't. And the way it was always structured was nice too, because you'd have a couple different, besides like an overall head of the event, you'd have a person who was like a volunteer head and like a performance lead and like a concession lead.
Yeah, we'd have one person responsible for concessions and everything food, and then we'd have another person responsible for performance, like which is kind of everything else.
Like a vice
and then one person that oversaw the event. And those 3 people, their job was to walk around the event and make sure everything was going smooth. So like they didn't have to serve food, but they had to make sure that entire process was running well. And it helped to pull, a person out of a hands-on job to sort of make sure that every aspect of that was running smooth.
Right. There's like the volunteer coordinator too. We had, especially like a show like the marching band show, where you need, 75, 100 people. You have one person that just tells everybody where they got to go.
All your volunteers check in with one person and they go over, okay, this is where you are. This is your responsibility. Here's an outline. And do you have any questions?
I always appreciated you guys having roamers, people who just
did
their job, because that allowed, and Matt, your job was always to be with me and like whatever we.
Well, that was the next thing.
As a band director, I didn't have almost anything to do because everybody was kind of taking care of stuff.
Well, you had stuff to do, but you didn't have to do the little nuisance things.
Yeah,
that was Matt's job.
And that was the one thing I was going to say, is that it was better. There was always, at least like when I was president, I didn't get a specific job. It was more of you walk around with I joke about walk around with a little fire extinguisher, and you just deal with whatever comes up. And then if you can't do it right there, that's what cell phones are for, and who's in charge of what, and you get somebody to do it, and know that it's that way. You can just, just take care of it. It's all, and that's the whole thing about, fundraising and stuff, is hosting shows is the best way to make money.
There is no better fundraiser.
You can have, we joke about the bake sales, or like,
car wash,
like you said, even the cookbook sales. Cookbook was great, but I don't know how many years ago that came out, but it was a few years ago, and there's probably still some sitting in a box, along with some other things. You make the most money hosting the events, and you do a good job, you be prepared, and you make it, people want to come to your place, and you get, I'm sure that it helps when everybody comes there is happy, all the band directors are happy, and all the kids and the families are happy. And that, I mean, and it's just the fact that you can have an event at your place. I know that having the jazz festival there, or having, it was nice, like when you do the big jazz festival, there's people that you'd see once a year, but they love coming there because everything ran well. We had good food, which, of course, always makes people happy, and it's not only making money, for the boosters, which, we're going to be able to help more things with the music program, but there's also other things that people don't always think of, like hosting an event actually saves the school money. They don't have to pay for school buses, and they have to, other issues with transportation that it's, it's kind of a win-win. It's definitely worth it.
It's certainly beneficial to the kids to have access to their own band room, and,
One of the things I always appreciated about your list right afterwards and improving, that fits right along with this, because the whole purpose of this series that Jeff and I are doing is called The Growing Band Director, and how the hope is to cultivate more people who just try to get better at their job every day. And for us, it's being a band director. And I always liked that no matter how well the festival went, I always got that email, hey, what did you think? How could it go better? And even if I didn't have anything, I knew we were constantly trying to improve and trying to get better. And I appreciated that very much.
I think one other thing that about is communication, and you talked about it, but what I would say to a new band director is get a set of walkie-talkies. Cell phones are great, but they don't always function in certain areas, whereas a walkie-talkie does. And as Matt said, he was the rover going around putting out the fires with the fire extinguisher. My grandparent president did the same thing, and I had my walkie-talkie to put out my fires with the band directors. But each chair of each section had their walkie-talkie say, hey, we've run out of hot dog rolls. Can somebody run down to Stu Leonard's and get 6 dozen hot dog rolls or something like that? And so you always had a walkie-talkie. You communicate a problem, you could beat it before it becomes a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the main reasons why we're always trying to be better and to get better or do something better, and even if an event is over and it was flawless, we're still like, okay, well, what special touches could we add next time? I think in the back of our minds, you realize as a booster group, everything you do, whatever event you put on, whatever you do, is a reflection of the entire music program in Westbrook. It is. What we do is a reflection of the music program in Westbrook. How we behave in the community when we're asking for donations, or we're asking for support, or we're calling the police about our event. The way we come across to people, the retailers we deal with, it's a reflection of the music program in Westbrook. And I think, that's one of the reasons why we're always just really looking to, not just always host an amazing event, to the best of our ability, but always trying to make it just a little bit better.
I think Karen's right, 100% right. And I think the thing that happens is that the parents walk around town wearing their Westbrook shirt or their Norwalk shirt, whatever school they're from, and you go in to buy something at a store. Oh, you're with this band. And if you have to sell ads, it helps out, but it communicates how embodied the parents are in the overall school community and how it's going out into the community as a whole. And that's a real important part of communicating to the community how much the band parents are part of what's going on.
And that helps with recruitment.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
Because you're putting that positive image out there, and somebody's like, oh, hey, my kid's in band, I want a piece of that.
And then the one other thing we used to do is at our marching band competition, we'd have both middle schools that fed my high school. They'd come and play the Star Spangled Banner with us at the very beginning. And then they'd have free tickets to stay and watch the show with their parents. And then we'd always invite them to come down when we're warming up to show them how we warm up and get ready for a show. And then they march back up to the hill with us when we go to perform.
And then they get excited about it.
Yeah, very much so. And they say, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my cousin. And then they'd come up and we'd invite them up a lot. And when I'd go down and visit, I'd say, well, you guys got to see it. That's one of the things we do. And then same thing with jazz, same thing with guard, same thing with percussion, same thing with concert band, same thing with school musical.
Yeah, it's funny because I keep coming back to this. You plan as you finish the event, you're planning for the next year's event. You're
Yeah.
not planning for the next event. You're planning for
Yeah.
next time you host it. Because I've always done exactly the same thing. I don't know how many other band directors do this, but when I finish a concert, whatever that concert series is, if I haven't planned it already, I prepare, okay, what should I do at this time next year with the kids who are going to be there? So while you're in that fresh mode of what it was like, get your ideas for next year and get things set. So when that comes around, as a band director, I might not actually do that music, but I'll do some of it, and it gets me started on that process. And I don't plan it every year to year. I plan it ahead of time. And then if you do that all the time, you always have like next year's program kind of already set if you know what's coming up to you. And not everybody does that, but that forward thinking, I think, helps you be less stressed.
Oh, yeah.
Already planned far ahead of time. So, I just want to make that correlation for band directors who are listening, that you can do that with your programming for all your ensembles as well.
And a lot of time when parents hear other groups play, they'll say, hey, did you hear so-and-so play that song? That is really cool. Could we ever think about doing that? And sometimes they plant seeds in your head. You say, I never thought about that, but maybe that might be a good song. And then you go and investigate it. And then if you do pick the tune, you make sure you give credit to that parent. So-and-so said, hey, how about we try this tune?
Yep.
And the one other thing that I would say, I guess, if there's like, a new booster group, or say you have to host an event that you've never hosted before, because I've been on both ends of this. When we did our first Winter Garden percussion show, I was on the phone with the booster president of another district that had hosted this show 5 times. And I said, hey, can I talk to you about this? And they were so helpful and so forthcoming with all of their helpful information that it just, you don't have to start from scratch. There are so many people out there that are willing to help. And I had the booster, somebody from South Portland a couple years ago who had to host a marching band show, and for some reason, I guess didn't have a lot of the notes from previous shows. And, we sent him everything we had, and we're like, well, this is what we do, but obviously, you can make it your own. But, find a booster group that's done what you need to do, and at least pick their brain as a starting point, so you don't have to start from scratch.
Just like we would do as a teacher, find a teacher or somebody who's done what you've done, and learn from them.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, everybody wants everybody to do well. It helps everybody.
Yeah, there's no competition between booster group,
Well, and that's correct. And what happens is that by sharing with ours was when we had our first marching band competition, we talked to Bunnell High School, who had been doing it for years, and they shared with us what would be the good things to do and what might be the pitfalls, and we grew from there. But as we grew along the way, we continue to share information to improve both our shows, and then other people would copy things that we did and that Bunnell did, and it just blossomed into a huge group of people sharing all the time and seeing one another. Hey, how are you? And a nice camaraderie would occur between different schools.
Well, as we wrap up this session, I thank you guys so much for being here. Anything we didn't get to, any last minute words of wisdom for people who are still listening, that we have anything still in your mind that we want to make sure we mention while we're here?
No, I think that just overall, it's, being positive, talking about the benefits of things, always being on the lookout for, like you said, getting new people involved, and always trying to find ways to make things better.
And don't be afraid if somebody presents you with an opportunity, whether it be like a fundraising opportunity or something that, maybe isn't in your current list of things that you do. Don't be afraid to have an open mind to take on something new, because if you think it might be worth it, it probably is.
And to band directors, if you're looking for people to help run the organization, do your best to find type A personalities.
I don't know any of them.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. And always communicate with the parents. The more you communicate and develop a trusting coexistence, things just improve.
Absolutely. I bet it avoids a lot of the parents saying, well, I didn't know, because not everybody brings home that piece of paper that they put in their backpack they got from the band director,
Nobody brings the piece of paper home.
Well, thank you guys very much for having this conversation. Hopefully it's helped some other programs get started and improve. And and all that. And I do want to do a quick plug. Hopefully people are enjoying the podcast and have heard some of the other episodes. And if you haven't, would you go back and listen to them and share them with your friends and all that? That we'd be very grateful for that. And looking forward to next week too, which is going to be a really great topic about basically the big things that we do as band directors that are bad and good. And it's based on a great book by Richard Floyd. So we're really looking forward to having that with a special guest on as well. But Matt and Karen, thank you guys for being here. Jeff, as always, nice to see you. Keep it real.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt and Karen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe too. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you have the time, we highly recommend the After Sectionals podcast for more great listening. Thank you for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.